The front page of today's Toronto Sun really says it all, doesn't it? Sure, Dalton McGuinty is grossly incompetent premier, turning Ontario into a have-not province while running massive deficits for as far as the eye can see. He's a disaster in every sense of the word. But in the end, only Tim Hudak's greater incompetence could ensure that Premier Dad won re-election. Scandal-plagued McGuinty entered the summer deeply unpopular. At one point, Tim Hudak had a 20-point lead in the polls. 20 points. Not that long ago. Hudak seemingly decided the premiership was just kind of going to be handed to him on a silver platter. And so he decided to mail it in to coast. He decided he didn't need to substantively differentiate himself from McGuinty in any way. All he needed to do, he just needed to be named something other than McGuinty. And we saw how that strategy turned out last night. Sure, Hudak can try to blame Stephen Harper and Rob Ford for his problems, as his dwindling cadre of supporters are now doing. But last time I checked, Stephen Harper won 73 seats in Ontario. He dominated the province, and Rob Ford, he won Toronto handily. Unlike Hudak, both Harper and Ford painted a vivid contrast. They didn't run from their core principles. People know what those two leaders stand for. Now, some might try to polish this little turd, and they may try to sugarcoat the result. Sure, Dalton McGuinty did lose a bunch of seats. Sure, he's been held to a minority, barely, by one seat. The margins are so tight, I mean, who knows if it'll even remain a minority anyway. Personally, I'm not discounting the chance that Premier Dad will manage to entice a few New Democrats or Tories to cross the aisle. Hey, a cabinet post for you, just come on, come across, little boy. A cabinet post could be hard to say no to, but even if McGuinty is constrained to a minority government, I mean, is this really good news for Conservatives? For those who want to be fiscally responsible? It's quite the opposite, I'd say. A minority McGuinty government will, of course, be dependent on support from the NDP. If you think the McGuinty government was a big spender now, just wait until McGuinty needs to suck up to the New Democrats. You ain't seen nothing yet. The McGuinty Liberals are already being held hostage by their buddies in the public sector unions. You know, the fellows who got hefty pay raises from McGuinty and in turn spent millions of dollars in advertising on McGuinty's behalf. Now the hardline socialists will be able to demand tribute as well. How many more billions in spending will they be able to get? It'll be like the last McGuinty government on steroids. And will the McGuinty Liberals really mind all that much? I don't think so. The NDP will give them all the cover they need to spend even more, just like the federal Tories did in their minority governments. The Ontario Liberals will claim, hey, I got no choice but to spend more of your hard-earned money. And as I've said before, just because you aren't unlucky enough to live in McGuinty's Ontario right now, don't think this doesn't affect you. Remember, Ontario is a have-not province now. And that means they will increasingly want the rest of Canada to subsidize their out-of-control spending. Just this past summer, at the Premier's Conference in Vancouver, Dalton McGuinty publicly suggested that the rest of the country subsidize his green energy swindle. Perhaps it was just a trial balloon, but as Ontario descends deeper and deeper into economic irrelevance, they will cry increasingly louder for a bailout from the productive parts of Canada. I see only one solution. Tim, I'm talking to you, Timmy. You've already done a great disservice to conservatism. You managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory and left Dalton McGuinty controlling Ontario's rudder. Tim, you campaigned as a Liberal. You ran away from every single conservative principle you might have previously held. You campaigned as McGuinty Light. Your reputation is in tatters. You know that you almost certainly have serious leadership challenges from both the left and the right of your party. A leadership review in the new year is almost a certainty, and you have no doubt run up a huge campaign deficit trying to fight McGuinty's superior forces. Good luck, Tim, trying to fundraise now. You can't count on big corporate donors. You've got nothing to offer them. And Joe and Jane Ontario, the regular hard-working types that donated $50 or $75 over and over and over again to make Stephen Harper's Conservatives one of the most effective fundraisers in recent history, well, Tim, they don't trust you anymore because you betrayed their principles. Tim, without money, You won't be able to mount an effective opposition in this minority setting. Sure, you'll be able to huff and puff a lot, but Dalton will know you're tapped out. You're too broke to actually go into a campaign against him. You'll be every bit as feckless as under a Liberal majority. And the high-priced corporate mercenaries who ran your campaign into the ground, well, they'll only be your buddies for as long as you can afford to line their pockets, which won't be long. The future doesn't look pretty for you. Look, Tim, it's time to take one for the team, for the good of the province and the country. Tim, save us from a Liberal NDP government. Save us from even bigger spending. Timmy, I'm on my knees. I'm begging you. Cross the floor. Sit as a Liberal. You campaigned as one. Please go take your rightful seat. That's Canadian common sense.